The greatest threat to humanity is not the man with malice in his heart, but the one who blindly follows without question. Let that sink in. We've always been taught to fear evil, the dark, obvious kind, the dictators, the abusers, the criminals. But what if the true danger lies not in deliberate cruelty, but in something more subtle, something quieter, something that smiles while it destroys, something that walks beside us in silence, something that doesn't even know it's dangerous? What if evil isn't the true enemy? What if the real enemy is human stupidity? This isn't a question meant to provoke. It's a warning from history, from a man who lived through one of humanity's darkest chapters. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German pastor, a theologian, and a man executed by the Nazis for refusing to remain silent. Bonhoeffer believed something radical, something terrifying. He said, "Stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice." It's a statement that should make you uncomfortable, because it means the most devastating force in the world might not be the scheming villain, but the smiling neighbor, the silent colleague, the obedient citizen, the one who means well but never thinks. So who was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and why should you care? Born in 1906, Bonhoeffer was a brilliant young theologian from a prominent German family. He had a choice to live a safe life, teaching, writing, preaching. But instead, he chose the path of resistance. He saw the rise of Adolf Hitler not as an isolated horror, but as a symptom of something deeper, a sickness in the soul of a society that had stopped thinking. He joined a secret plot to assassinate Hitler. Yes, a Christian pastor risking everything to stop a tyrant. And for that, he was imprisoned, tortured, and executed. He died at 39. But before he was killed, he wrote reflections from prison that echo louder today than ever before. Among them, this chilling insight: against stupidity, we are defenseless. He didn't mean stupidity in the way we often use the word. He wasn't talking about low IQ or lack of education. He was describing something more frightening: willful blindness, the refusal to think, the surrender of moral responsibility. Bonhoeffer said, stupidity isn't an intellectual failure, it's a moral failure. It's what happens when people stop asking questions, when they become paralyzed by fear, when they silence their own thoughts to fit into the crowd, when they follow slogans instead of conscience. And here's what makes it so dangerous: a stupid person doesn't know they're being stupid. Worse, they often believe they are doing the right thing. They become tools in the hands of the powerful. They act without understanding. They justify injustice with conviction. They follow rules they never wrote and defend causes they never chose. And because they believe they're virtuous, they cannot be reasoned with. Facts bounce off them. Logic means nothing. Dialogue is impossible. Bonhoeffer wrote, "In conversation with him, one virtually feels that one is dealing not at all with the person himself, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like which have taken possession of him." Does that sound familiar? Because it should. Look around. We are living in an age where stupidity is not just tolerated, it's rewarded. It doesn't matter if we're in a democracy or dictatorship. Stupidity thrives wherever people abandon thought in exchange for comfort. Whenever individuals choose to repeat instead of reflect. Whenever they trade critical thinking for identity politics, for ideology, for group approval. We have more access to information today than any generation before us. We are drowning in data. But data is not wisdom. Knowledge is not courage. And what we see now is a society overwhelmed by information, but paralyzed by fear. We scroll instead of think. We repeat instead of question. We share headlines instead of reading articles. And we wear our ignorance like a badge of honor. Bonhoeffer's warning is more urgent than ever, because stupidity doesn't just hurt the person who holds it, it empowers evil. It creates the perfect climate for manipulation, for authoritarianism, for cruelty dressed as order. He observed this firsthand in Nazi Germany. Ordinary people, shopkeepers, teachers, even churchgoers, transformed overnight into instruments of horror, not because they were monsters, but because they stopped thinking, because they followed the crowd, because they said things like, "I'm just doing my job." Evil doesn't need masterminds. It only needs enough people who are too afraid or too lazy to think for themselves. And here's the truly terrifying part. Stupidity often walks hand in hand with righteousness. People do terrible things believing they are defending morality, tradition, patriotism, even peace. But they are not thinking. They are obeying. They are echoing. And that makes them incredibly dangerous. Bonhoeffer said, "The stupid person is often stubborn. Once he is taken in, he will not be convinced by counter-arguments. This makes stupidity more dangerous than malice. The malicious person knows what they are doing. The stupid person does not, and yet they may cause even more harm." So where does this stupidity come from? Bonhoeffer noticed that stupidity isn't a personal trait. It's a social condition. It grows in environments of fear and isolation. When people feel powerless, when they're overwhelmed by complexity and reach for simple answers, when they're told what to think and punished if they dissent. Stupidity thrives in groups, in cults, in rigid political tribes. It feeds on slogans, certainty, and emotional manipulation. It dies in the presence of humility, curiosity, and honest dialogue. Which brings us to the hardest part of all. If stupidity is not about intelligence, then none of us are immune. You and I can be part of the problem. Every time we stay silent instead of speaking truth. Every time we pretend to know more than we do. Every time we mock rather than understand. Every time we choose comfort over conscience. If you think stupidity is something that only affects them, the other side, the uneducated, the uninformed, you are already in danger. The most dangerous kind of stupidity is the one that believes it is wise. So what do we do? How do we fight something so insidious? Bonhoeffer believed the answer lies in freedom of thought, in reclaiming your mind. He said, the essence of freedom is to think for oneself. To be truly free, you must break the chains of blind obedience. You must learn to stand alone, if necessary, to question even what feels true, to examine your assumptions, to sit with discomfort, to risk being wrong. This takes courage, far more courage than simply repeating what others say. It means reading deeply, listening carefully, engaging with people you disagree with, refusing to reduce complex issues to memes and labels. It means being brave enough to say, "I don't know," or even, "I was wrong." That's what real thinking looks like. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it is powerful. Bonhoeffer modeled this courage with his life. He could have remained silent. He could have lived comfortably, writing theology books and preaching to polite crowds, but he refused. He saw injustice and spoke out. He joined a conspiracy to overthrow a tyrant. He was arrested, imprisoned, and eventually hanged. Stripped of his rights, his dignity, his future, but never his conscience. One of his last recorded words before execution was, "This is the end. For me, the beginning of life." That is not the voice of a coward. That is not the voice of stupidity. That is the voice of moral clarity, of spiritual depth, of a man who thought deeply and acted accordingly. And now, you must ask yourself, what kind of person are you becoming? Are you just repeating what you've heard? Are you sleepwalking through life, confusing noise for truth, comfort for peace? Or are you thinking, truly thinking? Because the world doesn't need more opinions. It doesn't need more rage. It needs minds that are awake, hearts that are brave, people who are willing to resist not just evil, but the stupidity that enables it. Let's stop underestimating the damage caused by unthinking people. Let's stop excusing thoughtlessness just because someone means well. Good intentions without thought can still pave the road to hell. You are responsible for your mind. You are responsible for your words. You are responsible for what you choose to ignore. So, think. Think bravely. Think deeply. Think when others don't. Think when it's hard. Think when it's dangerous. Because that is how we fight the real enemy. If this message moved you, don't just like it. Live it. Share it. Reflect on it. Ask yourself, where have I let stupidity take root in my own life? Where have I chosen convenience over consciousness? What truth am I afraid to face? And what step can I take today to become more awake? Bonhoeffer's legacy is not just a warning, it's a challenge. And maybe, just maybe, it's the beginning of real change. Not from above, but from within. Because in the end, the most dangerous thing isn't the evil we fear. It's the unthinking people who let it grow.